Workers' compensation. Workers' compensation insurance covers the cost of medical care and rehabilitation for workers on the job. It also compensates them for lost wages and provides death benefits for their dependents if they are killed in work-related accident, including terrorist attacks. The workers' compensation system is the exclusive remedy for on-the-job injuries suffered by employees as part of the social contract embedded in each state laws. The employer gave up the right to sue the employer for injuries caused by the employer negligence and in return receives workers' compensation benefits regardless of who or what caused the accident, as long as it happened in the workplace as a result of and in the course of workplace activities. Workers' compensation system vary from state to state statutes and court decisions control many aspects, including the handling of claims, the evaluation of impairment and settlement of disputes, the amount of benefits injured workers receive, and the strategies used to control costs. Workers' compensation costs are one of the many factors that influence business to expand it or relocate in a state, generating jobs. When premiums rise sharply, legislators often call for reforms. The last round of widespread reform legislation started in the late 1980. In general, the reforms enabled employers and insurers to better control medical care costs through coordination and the oversight of the treatment plan and return to work process and to improve workplace safety. Some states are now approaching a crisis once again as new problems arise. The workers' compensation, social contracts, the industrial compensation that took place in the United States during the 19th century was accompanied by a significant increase in workplace accidents at that time. The only way injured workers could obtain compensation was to sue their employers for negligence. Proving negligence was a costly, time consuming effort, and often the court ruled in favor of the employer. But by the early 19th, a state by state pattern of legislative proposals designed to compensate injured workers had begun to emerge. Wisconsin enacted the first permanent worker compensation insurance laws in 1911. New York had enacted a law a year, but it was found unconstitutional, and by 1920 all that eight states had enacted similar laws. By 1949 all states had a workers' compensation system that provided compensation to workers hurt on the job. Regardless of who was at fault, the costs of medical treatment and wage loss benefits were the responsibility of the employer, which were paid through the workers' compensation system. The scope of worker compensation coverage has broadened considerably since its early beginnings in 1972. States amended their laws to meet performance standards recommended by the National Commission on State Workers and Compensation Laws. Many states took action not only to expand benefits but also to make the coverage applicable to classification of employees not previously covered. However, compensation levels are not uniform. In some states, benefits are still inadequate, while in others they are overly generous. Some states were slow in adopting the National Commission's guidelines and have still not embraced the entire package of 90 recommendations published in 1972. Many states exempt employees with only a few workers from mandatory coverage laws. A major benefits issue still to be solved in some states is the imbalance between levels of compensation for various degrees of impairment. Permanent partial disabilities tend to be overcompensated and permanent total disability undercompensated. Some coverage for workers' compensation is provided by federal programs, for example, the Longs, Ordnance and Harbor Workers Compensation Act passed in 1927 and substantially amended in 1984 provides coverage for certain maritime employees and the federal employees. Compensation Act protects workers hired by the US government. Employers can purchase workers' compensation coverage from private insurance companies or state-run workers' agencies known as state funds. In 14 states, state funds compete with private insurers, and in 4 funds also function as the insurer of last resort for businesses that have difficulty getting coverage in the open market. The only state in which worker compensation coverage is truly optional is Texas, where about one third of the state employees are so called non subscribers. Those that opt out of the system can be used by employees for failure to provide the percentage of larger companies optioning out has been growing. Some business finance their own workplace injuries benefits through a system known as self-insurance. Large organizations with many employees can often estimate the cost of routine types of injuries. Self-insurance, along with large deductibles, which are in effect self-insurance, now account for more than one third of traditional market premium. About 9 out of 10 people in the nation's workforce are protected by workers' compensation insurance.